Howdy, sir. How you doing? Well, they tell me I'm live streaming, but I don't know if I believe it. Oh, I do believe it. Okay, here I am. Very cool. Excellent. Okay. And I'm gonna turn that off so y'all don't see yourselves. And voila. Okay.
It's a scary orb right there.
Yeah, well, I bought it because sometimes I have to reread like my notes when I'm doing the minutes, and then I realize like, oh, I don't know exactly what we were saying there. My scribble isn't good enough. So then I'll go back and I'll watch the recording, and the audio is terrible because I'm just using the audio, the onboard audio from my laptop. So I said I'm going to buy an actual microphone where we can hear what everyone says. Because like Sean, who sits over there, he's got such a quiet voice that I can't hear anything that he says. And then Holly, I couldn't hear anything she said from the last one, so I was like, no, I'm buying a microphone. Yeah.
So will it modulate if we talk too loud?
I think so. And actually it's got a 360-degree pickup, so it doesn't have to be directional. From any direction, anyone who's talking
So
can pick up.
shall we address it as droid or just?
I think we should have some nice name for it. Maybe we should personalize it in some form or fashion. I can write its name on it. Hal
Yeah, how? Yeah.
24. Maybe
It'd be real
instead of 9,000.
spooky if it had little wheels that
Roll to
would
whoever's
follow your
talking.
voice.
Yeah.
It's like a cross between like BB-8 and the Pixar,
Oh,
Pixar like light thing,
Oh,
yeah. Oh, the lamp. Yeah,
Yeah,
the
the lamp.
logo.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought that I was maybe going to find the Napoleon willow today, but I did not. Have you ever heard of the Napoleon willow?
Yeah, that rings a bell. Is that where the old bot garden was?
Well, yeah, they had a willow planted at the old bot garden. That was a cutting taken from above the grave of Napoleon. And they said that that cultivar is
Oh, it
weeping
doesn't
because
matter.
it's sad because Napoleon's death.
I'll just.
And we had that big one growing in the old botanical gardens on Tanyard Branch until the 40s.
To my eye this morning.
And then it got taken out.
So Tanyard Branch, sort of not too far where the tree that owns itself, is that?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I saw a map of where the old bot garden was, and near that site, there's a whole grove of tree of heaven, Atlantis trees.
That was probably planted. I actually just read about it in an old article where when they sold the botanical gardens, they used that money to buy the arch and the iron fencing on North Campus. But I never heard about it.
Interesting
That
trade.
they also paid for a bunch of ailanthus trees.
Interesting. I mean, I mean, they are
Really,
yeah.
yeah, sneaky
And it's
ailanthus.
it's behind a rental house right now.
Huh. Yeah, I mean they're not
Where
good
is
in
it?
terms of our native
Just
trees.
right across the street from the
Okay,
tree that owns
from
it.
there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can pull it up actually.
Tree of Heaven stinks like hell. That's what I remember from
Yeah,
dendrology.
Yeah, out parts of it, you can scratch the bark, but
Yeah.
its bark stinks.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
way I was always described it was that it smells like burnt peanut butter.
Yeah, bitter
It-
peanut butter. or something.
It
That's
does,
right.
man. It's
Exactly.
Burnt
That's
peanut
tough.
butter. Now, where do you find that?
Well, I don't know. I guess you just kind of put burnt together with peanut butter. If that's what you imagine.
so there's actually a guy,
Not at Kroger's.
Bill Mann, who was at the
Right, yeah, that's
landscape
who showed you the
architecture.
map, yeah.
So his theory is that it was over here where the Holiday Inn Express was.
Hmm.
Yeah, and here, and I think that's probably correct, and with some of the descriptions. Of the tenured branch, it makes sense that it would have been between Ward's house here and campus. Cause it ran down here. But of course, the sign that talks about the old botanical garden says that it was up here and, this park area. But actually, I just read an article earlier today as well that said it was between Tanyard Branch and the school. What was Clark Central. So this could have been botanical gardens as well. But I thought that I was gonna find the Napoleon willow back here. Somebody planted it, the guy Tate, the Tate Center is named after. Yeah, he took cuttings from one that he knew wasn't Napoleon willow and planted it in his backyard at 436 Deering.
Are you looking for the tree people?
I am.
That's us.
You have found
We all start early.
it. We just, this
Well, we're just hanging out.
this is important fun right there.
But yeah, that whole yard though is completely taken over by bamboo and wisteria. So there's nothing alive underneath,
Yeah.
but
Really?
it's really sad. The neighbors came out and talked to me and they were like, yeah, I mean, there used to be really old roses and just like all sorts of different species of plant, but it's all gone now. So
Up and down through there, we used to
Well,
take
there's a
dendrology
willow,
walks back
Napoleon
in
willow that
the,
was planted.
when was that, in the early '70s, I guess.
Original
All
bottom.
out millage and up and down, and they had, there's incense cedar and all kinds of really cool, even western species growing scattered about within a block or two of millage both sides, all through there.
yeah, I would really like to do one of those sip and strolls around, the Deering area. There's just so much cool stuff to talk about. Especially some of these gardens. There's some really cool old gardens that people have done. You know about that one, Natalie?
I feel like I've been in a lot of these gardens on Deering.
Yeah.
That one, it looks cooler than it is. That one
This
with
one?
this,
Yeah,
this
oh.
one.
This one?
Yeah,
Wheels.
but we can always just go tromping around back there.
Deering.
Well, Mateo, speaking of tromping around, just on the way over here, I drove under a little roadside grove of Tree of Heaven
Really?
on Research Drive, just as you turn off of College Station on the Research Drive.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Up on the right.
you go a little further down and there's a whole grove of mimosa in there in that low spot is where the office building is and the
Right,
parking
yeah.
lot. A bunch of that.
You had to
But
say where
since
it was.
that's on.
Would you say it's in here?
In the, just right, yeah.
Right, where you're-
Since it's in the right of way, can we, put out a hit on those or?
Yeah, my worry would be if we kill them without taking them down, then it becomes a danger to.
Oh, yeah,
to pedestrians.
yeah, they're leaning over the road. I mean, I'm talking about,
Um,
DOT or whoever's in charge of the road.
That would be us. I'm not sure of the
Is that- so that's
measurement
the
for
county
right of way for
section.
research.
But it's just, it's just,
Hello.
it's just disturbing that they're there and,
Yeah.
public property.
Research Drive is a little bit weird because there's a lot of UGA property along this right here.
On the riverside, yeah.
Something different about this room.
Hmm.
Is table different?
I put a microphone out, so now I can hear everybody on the recording, hopefully. So I bought that microphone. And then usually this is not behind me. I feel
It's very large.
very professorial with this behind me.
Smells like cinnamon or something.
We do have some trees in here now. Need to liven it
Living
up.
on that.
We're doing it.
Yeah. it's
I don't even have to
depressing.
water these ones. Drought tolerant.
Keeps you inspired.
The one that's in the lobby though is actually a real one. So
Tell you what's good.
it gets a lot of handling. Hello, Wick. How are you, sir? I'm just gonna travel us back over here to the tree that owns itself, just because that's my favorite spot. Yeah. Or actually, let's do this. I found a really cool old picture of the tree that owns itself.
That's fine.
It's taken in the 30s,
Oh,
so I colorized it.
I was gonna say.
It wasn't originally black and white, but I thought that was super cool.
Do you know who they are?
No clue. No clue.
Where'd you find the picture?
It's an old AJC picture.
Okay.
I had to remove the watermark because I'm
Yeah.
not using it. I'm just putting it on my desktop.
Tree
So
looks like a regular.
I'm not gonna feel too bad about removing it.
Yeah, that's,
Why they say
they were
tree.
even painting tree wounds back then. It
Yeah.
looks like.
Oh yeah, yeah, they were. With creosote specifically, I've read. That's what they used.
So,
The 30s?
yeah, that's fair.
Hmm.
Yep.
You told me to
Mateo, I cannot stay after 4:45.
So if we have to vote, we have to do it soon, assuming we have a quorum. Which I'm not sure we do.
Assuming such,
She's playing.
we shall see.
I once again have overextended myself.
No, you're just the right extended.
That's my weird get up.
You doing the mountain bike thing,
Little
the
Bellas.
little ones?
Yeah.
Cool. Very cool.
So if any of you have daughters between the age of like 6
Were they?
Yeah.
13,
Yeah.
Red Admiral.
Yeah.
in the program.
I have neighbors who are
Little Bellas.
nice.
It's not competitive. We
Okay.
don't teach them any sort of like fancy skills. It's really just more about, getting outside and
Okay.
Let's go have
gaining
fun.
confidence and having fun.
Is it through Sorba?
No, it's independent. It's a nationwide program.
Okay.
Huh. Very cool.
Check out Girls on the Run.
It's like Girls on the Run with mountain bikes.
Well, I mean, we might as well start and just chat. I don't think we're gonna get a quorum today. 2, 3, 4, 5.
Why?
We might get it. We got six voting members right now.
We need 2 more or 1 more.
One more.
Go ahead.
May very well. I don't know much to vote on now,
Yeah.
honestly. I had a few things that I could talk about with y'all. Holly and I had a discussion the other day about
I
plant
feel like we just
flammability.
met.
I know.
It was 3 weeks ago, right?
Well, because we
Yeah.
We moved it back a week.
pushed it forward, yeah, so it does feel very soon past the last one.
Which would be a kind of a novel thing.
Yeah.
Finally having.
Let's do this.
We could show you last time.
Yes, we did.
That's because he threatened us. We had to vote.
It was nice prodding.
So no Joe, no Sean. And,
Mary,
yeah.
he's out too.
Right.
Well,
Holly said she would.
She's gonna be late.
Yeah,
yeah,
we'll be gone.
we all will cross each other on the way in and out.
Well,
Well, you want me to just chat?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, I got a bunch of things I can talk about. Let's do this. So, FlexiPave. So it's recycled rubber and aggregate mix. It's completely pervious, so water goes through it super easily. People have been trying to figure out an alternative to the iron tree grates downtown for a long time. There's a number of reasons why. One of the big complaints we've had from buildings is that mice will get down under those tree grates and they'll eat the irrigation. So our irrigation always fails really quickly on newly establishing trees. Another issue that I have found is that business owners put their trash in those grates all the time. I found like drywall mortar and like all sorts of trash in there. So Streets and Drainage had a demonstration. Hey, Had a demonstration where we installed that in front of Sister Louisa's. It's right on the other side of Shokatini. So So we have installed FlexiPave on this tree right here. We took out the grate and installed it. It's 1.5 inches thick. They say the replacement time on it is somewhere between 10 and 20 years, depending on traffic over the top of it. An iron grate costs us about $850. It takes 4 people to put in. So anytime we would try to adjust and cut out a section, we'd have to have 4 people go, pull it out, drive it somewhere, use a big circular, angle grinder, cut it out, and then bring it back. So it's just really cumbersome. It ends up not happening. So this is hopefully a good alternative to that. When the tree starts growing into it, because we leave a few inches on either side, you can cut it with a diamond tipped saw, or just a hammer and chisel.
So it doesn't have a border frame. It is the same material all the way to the edge. Right?
Yeah, all the way to this edge here, and really you can paint the binder onto that edge, and we tape it off as well with painter's tape, and then you can set it in. But something really nice is that it will flex and move as that root flare gets bigger and bigger. It won't girdle the tree. Mice won't get down in there, and people can't throw trash in there. So hopefully it'll be a win-win. The cost of that is about $7 a square foot. So it equals out to about $175 per tree well to do.
That's a lot cheaper.
Over
A lot less work.
Well, front end maintenance.
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't heard of any impacts with it. I mean, I wouldn't want to be drinking the water, but I got to worry about endocrine disruptors like rubber. I don't think trees worry about that. Of course, I don't think we have studies to show whether or not, tiny trace amounts of rubber will affect them.
But it doesn't impact root.
The what?
Will it affect temperature and heat over that more than a grate would?
It might, depending on the color that we use. We use like a burgundy color on it.
Oh, it comes in different colors.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it comes in a number of different colors. Typically what they call for is a sub base 57 stone. And then you can just pour that 1.5 inches in. It would be really interesting to see, to take readings of the soil underneath it in the middle of summer.
More compacted than like that the tree would prefer. Like, and that the fine root growth would be impacted and.
I don't think so. I mean, water goes through it really, really readily, super, super easily. And if you put the sub base underneath it, really you're only dealing with foot traffic in terms of weight to compact soil. They've used this to really good effect in a number of places, all the way around trees. I think Marietta is using it on their street.
So I was confused. It's put down like asphalt or plant mix or something. I mean,
Yep.
it's not already formed like that.
So you have a 50-pound bag of aggregate and of rubber, and you mix the two 50-50 and then hand mix it. And then you just pour it in and kind of screed it with a tool. So the guy that did it, it was just him. He installed it. But usually they say they'll have like 3-person crews installing, one mixing, one wheelbarrowing to the spots, and one.
Did you watch when he put it
screeding.
in?
Yeah, it's basically like a playground flooring. Those rubber floors, but it will allow water through. Like the playground ones will shed the water. I would love to like pour water on this one right now to show y'all, but should clean it up.
You don't need a big roller or anything to compact
No.
it.
And it's dry after usually in the southeast, because water cures it, usually it's dry within 8 hours. So Streets and Drainage is really excited about it because anytime they put concrete down, there's always people drawing in it. So they have to have someone sit there with it for hours, whereas this, not really the case.
People drawing.
It's like how are we gonna mark our territory?
Hold up, let's see here. Um, so yeah, so that's something new. We might,
Cemented in, so. Good for prosperity.
so that's a little update on what's going to be happening to street trees downtown. I think
Oh, it's
they're-
already like.
Well, they're gonna send a crew to train Athens-Clarke County employees to install it, which shouldn't be too hard. And then we'll be able to install the product ourselves, buy the product wholesale and use it. But I think probably what we'll end up doing is just as those tree grades get to the point where we need to cut it, we'll just replace it with that material. Because really the hourly rate for the people that we use to replace them, it's less expensive for us to just put that stuff in than take the grade, cut it, put it back. And there are quite a few on Broad that are getting really close to being girdled. So that's what's going on with those. I'm gonna hold off on talking about the plant flammability stuff that Holly and I have been discussing until she's here. I have got an artist working on a sign. So there's a lot of times where I have wood left, like along right of way or in some other instances. And I always get phone calls because people will say like, oh, that company that you're hiring didn't take the wood with them. So I want to make a sign which will explain it to people so I don't have to take those phone calls. And really just to kind of change the cultural, carrots and sticks, let people see. So these are this one is the first one that she came up with. And I had her switch these because I feel like this is kind of more important to have on a yard sign for someone to see while they're driving past. And I put it on a QR code now that will take them to, I think it's firefly.org. It's a nonprofit organization trying to increase firefly populations. So that should take someone to that if they want to know more information about, well, how does rotting wood, affect insect populations?
And you might wanna talk to PIO or somebody about linking to a non-ACC website, viewing a QR code on this thing, that's very easy.
Okay. Yeah, I've
Also,
got.
There's some security issues that can happen with QR codes and you're not linking to an ACC. I would just check
Yeah,
the powers that be.
yeah, definitely.
Make sure you're not doing something that's gonna set us up for, yeah.
If nothing else, I think I could link to my website, the Forester, and have some compelling information there.
Talk to someone about that, because I think that could set you up for some potential issues if that website goes defunct, if all of a sudden someone gets their website and links it to bad pictures, and those things happen with.
Naked trees.
I mean, I can come up with all sorts of ways that it could go wrong. Only reason I flagged it is like the outside website on a QR code on the county sign. I think I would double check how that.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, now how does that, do the firefly larvae, are they left in the leaf litter? Is that how they?
Yeah, so their larvae are in the soil and usually they're predatory. So they're actually looking for other grubs, other insects.
Okay.
And they usually prefer rotting wood that's down on the forest floor to search for food. Also, another thing is that, we think of succession in a forest, right? Going from let's say, a disturbed forest going through, you know, pines and sweet gums, maples, getting like further and further to the hardwoods, right? So we think of succession above ground, but people don't really think of a soil going through succession. So after a disturbance, soil is very often bacterially dominated. So it doesn't hold water very well. And as that area is aggrading carbon, they're creating trees, those trees are dying and falling, and then that carbon material is increasing the fungal ratios of the soils. So then those soils can hold more water. There's just better soil structure. So I've always said that a fallen forest feeds a forest. So leaving wood is something that all too often people don't do anymore. You know, you get a tree company out there, take all this wood with you, take every bit of it. I don't want any of it. So we don't leave any dead wood on our forest floors, and that's a big component of firefly decline. That, you know, nighttime lighting and insecticide use are the other two that are big. But
So I know you can't put so much information on that sign, but it's a lot more than just fireflies. I mean, it's like a little recycling project. And that wording makes it look like that's your only goal is fireflies.
well, fireflies are sexy.
Oh,
They
they-
got, you know, people like them, and you know, there's the same reason why the World Wildlife Federation uses.
oh, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Just wonder if you can just add one more word on there,
Are you
like.
gonna make two versions, like lightning bugs for those bugs? I feel left out in the middle Georgia.
Controversial.
I knew it was gonna happen. So I mean, really, I wanted to show y'all just in case we had recommendations or things that we thought could be better. Because I want it to strike a chord, not be more questions than answers. But I realize, you know, we can't really explain everything in a quick yard sign. So that's why I wanted the QR code. So, you know, and then of course,
Put
you know,
et cetera up there, that one.
And other species. Like,
And other species.
That's that in the question.
Yeah.
It's how rotting wood
Yeah.
helps trees, bees, and nature devotees. So, you know,
And it makes
implies that it
enough
helps
sense.
more than just firefly.
I think
Yeah.
also this needs to be edited so that trees, bees, and devotees are shown and you realize, oh yeah, they rhyme. Because otherwise when they're like this, you kind of lose it. You know, it's not really like a rhyming scheme at all. So
Were you talking like semi-permanent?
no, they'd be,
Sign?
I'd take a tree down and then leave it,
Trees.
you know, leave it there for a month, you know, something like that, and then take it and put it at the next one that we're gonna leave wood at.
I'm gonna put it in my yard.
Is the person that's reading this, are they driving? Are they walking?
Probably both.
So maybe just like deaf and then the QR code.
Oh man, I need to look at this. I need to check this out.
Yeah, just say.
Cause the accidents,
Yeah, just like if they're driving quickly, they,
Jar them into.
they're like, God, it looks messy here. And then they see that, ooh, you could tie it into like a Halloween kind of thing. Anyways, you could. Rotting wood supports firefly population.
Yeah.
Like simplify it.
Instead of like this wood has been
Yeah.
deliberately left.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then a fallen forest feeds a forest. That just comes from me, I feel like one day I am gonna hit something from reading or trying to figure out what a plan is while I'm driving. So.
And then
yeah,
instead
just
of curious, you could say, learn how rotting wood helps trees, bees, and nature.
Yeah, I like that.
That's good. It's like a direction,
Yeah.
not a question.
I really like the graphics and the colors.
Yeah.
Makes me wanna go outside right now.
Well, I was looking for something that I could use for this project, and I found one. There was the Atlanta Firefly Project. It's no longer running anymore, but I found a really cool infographic that had all the different types of fireflies that you find in Georgia, and then like their blinking patterns and a bunch of stuff. And I went to their website; it was closed, so I found the artist and just asked her. I was like, "Hey, can I can I link to this or can I use it in some fashion? She was like, that's totally fine. Just give me credit for it. But if you want to come up with something purpose built for it, I'd be happy to work with you at whatever budget, you're looking to spend. I was like, oh, I looked at a bunch of her other art. And I was like, wow, this looks great. What can we do for $100? And threw this together in a day. I was like, okay, cool. Very cool. So we're kind of going through a little bit of back and forth on it. I've only given her one bit of advice. So she's going to do the sip and scroll signs as well for me. So looking forward to it. Learn how rotting wood helps. Tell them to learn.
Yes.
Don't ask.
Direction.
I'm not asking if you want to learn. I'm telling you, you should learn.
Yeah, you should
Have to
learn.
pick one thing or the other, since like you're talking about fireflies, and I know you want to use your catchphrase, but like it's kind of like, wait, what a fallen forest, not just like wood.
Might be putting too much in it.
Yeah, I
Like
like
fallen trees feed a forest.
Yeah, are you trying to feed the forest or the bugs?
Yeah, you don't want the whole forest.
I understand that they're all connected, but on a sign, and we're overanalyzing the sign, we also.
Go away, person. I'm not answering. Okay, what else we got?
Have a quorum.
That we do.
I'd like to officially call this meeting to order.
Hey, let's do that at 4:25.
Better vote quickly if we have anything to vote on.
Have a chance to review the meeting minutes.
Ah, yes.
Do I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes from last meeting?
I so move.
I'll second.
Anyone not in favor? Speak now or forever hold your peace.
No nays? Passes.
I sent the treasurer's report.
Did everybody have a chance to review the treasurer's report? Do we have any questions, comments, concerns? Do I have a motion to accept the treasurer's report into the minutes? Nobody wants to be bold.
I feel like I can't really do it since I'm the
I
treasurer.
move we accept.
Phil's on it.
Okay.
So.
Anyone not in favor? Do we have any other
Voting business.
voting business? for this?
I don't want to try to push the plant flammability stuff until we've had a bunch of discussions on it.
You don't feel comfortable introducing the topic without Holly?
Oh no, I can definitely introduce it, but I just don't think we should vote on it or anything. But we can totally talk about it. I'd love
If
to.
we're gonna have much discussion, perhaps we should start now,
Let's do it.
unless there's another pressing topic. Okay, go for it.
Cool.
Are we done with the species list? We finished that from that last time.
Yeah, so we changed the levels of use.
Yeah.
And then we were talking about adding plant flammability characteristics as well. But Holly did want us to make sure that we're really specific with it because we can get ourselves into trouble with how we speak about it. So
Yeah, there was something about Firewise being like a.
it's like a name brand kind of.
Name.
Yeah. So it's probably not best that we use that. Really just plant flammability characteristics is better than Firewise rating.
Well, definitive, I mean, descriptive.
Yeah, and I think we'll have to have some explanation in the tree species list just to say what exactly we're talking about. So both of these are from one of Holly's publications. So when we're talking about flammability, okay, well, we're talking about how does it ignite? How does it combust? How long does it sustain those flames? And then how much of it is actually consumed by the fire? So it can really vary depending on from species to species. But that is what they're looking at to determine their flammability characteristics. And I think this further down is a better way of us showing it to people. So this is a good explanation, right? So, okay, moisture. If a tree doesn't have much moisture in the leaves, of course, it's gonna be flammable, right? If they're really moist leaves, okay, they're less flammable. Chemical components, rosemary or lavender, things that have oils in it are gonna be easily volatilized. So oak leaves, wide and flat, they're going to be less flammable than pine needles, just because of the surface area is the main thing. And probably also how much moisture is in them. Branching pattern, just how close are those branches together? How easily does one branch ignite other branches? Bark is a good one. Like sycamore is one of those trees that I was surprised that it's a moderate rating, but it's probably because the bark is really peely and lots of surface area. And also that's a ladder fuel to bring that fire further up into the canopy, which is what we're worried about. Let's see, and then retention of dead plant parts. So does it hold a lot of dead branches, like Leland cypress or some pine species? But I think this, Holly and I were talking about, we think this would be a good thing to have in that species list, just to show what exactly we're talking about. What are some examples of characteristics of trees that would make them low flammability or high flammability. And
I have a couple questions on this. So like, I think you have to be very careful in the way you put that in your plant list. So most of the trees that are being planted based on the plant list are for developers in developments, and we're talking like a tree every, 50 foot or something. And so, okay, you're saying, oh, sycamore has a moderate level. Sycamores, like very rarely burn ever because of where they naturally grow. So yeah, when you take them out, but like you're not planting. So I think it's misleading. It's kind of taking fire dynamics and fuel and species come in the way they burn and how they burn, and kind of maybe taking it out of context for a tree species list in the way that tree species list is being used. I just feel like you need to be really careful, because like a lot of like the shrubs and things like that you do, people plant all the time may fall in that like high volatility. We're in the South and things like that, but like the chances of that shrub ever causing an actual issue if it was in a hedge in the type of setting that it's planted I just feel like maybe there's a better way to present that information instead of every tree has a flammability rating or something like that, because I think it kind of takes it out of context. Like if there's species that we recommend or say, hey, these are great, but we don't recommend them in thick plantings and dense plantings because they could do this or something like that, then maybe there's like a special category for it.
I mean, it'd probably be
like,
based on distance to the house
Well, yeah,
or
but-
structure.
right, but anything could be, I mean, so like fire-wise. So the fire-wise programs and things like that, like it's like what are we trying to do? I guess that's the question.
We're trying to broach the topic of the wildland urban interface.
Okay, so then it's also, it kind of comes to like, where's our tree list being used? And is it being used in the wildland urban interface?
We're in the wildland urban interface.
Okay, but like, let's.
And so developers do use our tree species list, but I get calls all the time from people all around the Southeast who are using our tree species list. So I think it would be nice just for us to have those ratings so people can see a little more data on it. Is this going to be tied to what can and can't be planted? No.
I can see this coming in handy for developers, especially like, large multifamily, like student housing complexes where they have their recreational area and they might have grills and stuff. Like they might specifically want to stay away from plants that have that high flammability rating.
No.
In recreational areas.
And of course, like Wick or I could call them out on that, but it's nice to have something to
On paper to
show.
refer to.
Yeah. Like, hey, you shouldn't put that Leland cypress up there with the grill.
I guess
But
that's what I'm saying, like, I think there's certain species you can point to and say like, okay, this will be a problem in a situation, but like, to like list for everything and like, cause then you create this assumption that, oh, a sycamore because of its bark, because the bark peels off, it has a moderate foot, it's like a sycamore is not, and I'm saying this from years of fire experience,
yeah,
sycamores don't burn. Okay.
so
Like,
maybe,
we're not in a situation where they're gonna be planted anywhere within this.
so
I think
maybe,
picking the ones that are actually problematic and not just do.
so just highlighting the ones that are of high risk.
That's what I would, because I think you're setting yourself up for a whole, like, what? Like I said, like, now I'm just picking one because.
And then people would stay away from.
Right.
And not plant them.
Because they require.
What might be helpful is, I don't know what you think about this, Mateo, but taking our most commonly planted trees, which the London plane tree would be one, the sycamore would be the London plane tree,
Yeah,
maybe taking those and taking a look at them, including the like Leland cypress,
no,
to create a circular that or that's what I can make extension service and so circular or something like that.
circular? I've never heard that.
You can circulate.
Oh.
So that might be one idea. I do think looking at our tree species list as I don't know if a living document is the right word, but as something that y'all come back to frequently. And this is one of those instances in trying to get ahead of the game. It is useful and should be done quite often as in my limited 2 years of experience. So I think something like this is useful again. I don't know how. I think you bring up some good points, but it does.
I think it's more important on the point of view of where you're placing these types of trees. And that's really where the Firewise, like their landscaping tips, everything come into is, do you have defendable space? Do you have 20 to 30 foot of defendable space around your structures?
Mhm.
What type of structures? Are we talking wood? It's that kind of thing. That's what the fire, like that's what Firewise feeds off into. So like if a fire is encroaching, do you have vegetation? Have you cleaned out your gutters? Things like that and stuff like that, so that your roofs don't get, it takes one spark, your roof, quarter of your roof is gone, and like they're walking away from the house, like in a wildfire situation and triage. And so like it's one of those, like I think that's why I say like to list it for every species may not be helpful, but to say in general, if like you're planting like dense or you're doing close to structures, then yeah, you probably don't want to put XYZ, like if there's a way to do that, I mean, I don't know that, I'm fine with saying leaving.
Perhaps there just needs to be a further level of explanation in that, this information is not preventative from people planting, obviously, these species, but, high risk means, don't plant in dense vegetative areas, don't plant next to, high fire prone, grills, etc. Low risk means, this. So there's a further explanation since it's informative and not preventative.
I also don't want someone looking at the species list and being like, well, I can take out every pine tree. Because that's a high fire risk, because it has flammable needles and bark and it's, pyric. And I don't want someone to use that also in the opposite way, because a long unburned deciduous forest is going in a drought is gonna burn just as hot and as readily as a pine stand is, given the right conditions, which is where we come into the problems of our urban wildland interface and changes in temperatures and climates and things like that.
But you also have to look at what people are using the tree species list for. They're not using it as a means of saying, oh, I can take down these trees. They're looking at it as a means of, oh, what trees should I plant?
Right. But not you could think of, there's ways. Okay.
I think yes, a good point. So knowing how developers work with it, I think, and you getting calls from, I don't know if you're talking about like just citizens or other municipalities or
There's been residents like people in Chattanooga and
Just checking it out. But, yeah, I mean, we do have circulars, we do have pamphlets, you know, one page. I don't know, Patty's like, has your circular done? We do have, a lot of one pagers, they like trees in the law, or, you know, that's a really good one that I think can be in,
Yeah.
maybe we could explore that.
There are two publications specifically that I think would be really good to link to, that really describe exactly what we kind of want to broach with this. Three of them. Two of them are Hollies that are Georgia specific. And then the North Carolina extension has a really good one. I don't think I have that one on this computer. Did not save it on my desktop. But I think if we were gonna have these, it does require something where we can link to it and say, hey, you know, if you are really thinking about this, then here's the full rundown of what you need to be thinking. Like, just because you plant a low risk tree or a low flammability tree doesn't mean that your house is now safe. You know, like you should still have 1/8 inch metal screening on all your soffit vents for your house. There's a lot of things that you can do to reduce your risk. But I think this is just a good thing where somebody could see on the species list, like, oh, yeah, flammability characteristics. Like, do I need to worry about that? Like, I'll go to this link and I'll see about it. Because most people don't think that we are at any risk of wildfire, but actually we are at surprising risk here in Athens. So, I mean, I think it is something we need to talk about, or at least put out there to people. I mean, Georgia Arborist Association's doing their wildfire risk reduction qualification. So I know a lot of arborists are out there, sales arborists are out there talking about it with customers. And I think it is valuable to talk about. So I think, yeah, we need to really come to a good definition of what we would use as high flammability. Or if we're going to discuss low flammability, we need to come up with a really rock solid definition of those, so that we're not misleading. But yeah, so that's kind of where we're at now. It's just, we've just discussed it a few times. I think we probably need to talk about it a lot more. This is just kind of in the works.
It's what Wick's getting at, but I'm wondering now if maybe it should be more of a standalone document that's divorced from a species list, which is designed not just to talk about the general characteristics of trees, but to talk about planting or conserving and so forth, which is what the species list primarily does, I guess, right? This flammability, it's an inherent characteristic of the species, but the number of individuals that are and the distance that they are from each other and their proximity to a building or to other vegetation, all those things complicate the interpretation. It seems like if you have one waxburn bush planted at the corner of your yard, it's not nearly as dangerous as a hedge planted under your window sill.
And that's so much fun if you're putting in my concerns. Like, I am all for firewise and like all for educating the public on how to and make sure that their areas are defendable and that if and when a fire does approach that they haven't created an issue. But I do think it's a little hard to do it in a plant list because there's just so many I think. And there's so much good information on how to landscaping for viruses, but yeah.
It may be, it sounds to me what people are saying is, we do use the tree species list in this manner. Parking lot trees, for example, you just described a parking lot tree, but because of how we view fire, Because of what kind of like alarm bells that would send off in someone's head. It's a little different than a parking lot tree. Or a lot different than a parking lot tree. And so it might be more it might need more explanation that we couldn't, that we would need to work on getting ahead of the game, which is what Clear Potato's trying to do, trying to get ahead of the game here. And adapt to some of what we already have, but it obviously, you said it needs more hashing out, and that may be in the form of a.
I mean,
of a
it
bullet.
almost, you could almost put an asterisk, I can't say it. You know what I mean, it's like a little star. Put one of those next to the high flammability species on a species list with a footnote that says, in some circumstances, these might be risky or something, and then reference the document that then talks about flammability of all these things and what it is that makes them highly flammable.
Yeah, when do you need to worry about it? When do you not need to worry about it? You don't need to really worry about the white pine that's sitting out in the field 100 feet away from your house. But if you got it hovering over your home with branches touching your roof and huge rosemary bushes reaching up and touching the bottom branches, like, yeah, you need to be worried.
That's your grid.
Yeah. Yeah. But so this is one of Holly's. It's a pretty good document. It really goes through what you really need to be worried about. We're not usually worried about direct flame contact. We're more worried about embers flying in from a distance, them being sucked into your soffit vents. Gatlinburg, most of the homes there burned down because of that. The firefighters would come in, say, "Oh, everything's fine," and leave. And then hours later, a home goes up in flames because in the attic, there's embers that are slowly starting a fire. So little things like that, like having mesh in your soffit vents, is a big thing that people don't really realize. And we are completely naive to it in Georgia. Somebody in California is going to know all this for logical reasons. But we are traditionally a fire-dominated ecosystem. It happened quite often here. So I just feel really strongly that we should have some sort of outreach with respect to wildfire risk reduction. How dare you? Go have fun. Go have fun for us.
Well, I'm sorry that I wasn't here. I'm doing this national mentorship thing and we have like mandatory meeting from 3 to 4. And then I park in a remote lot that I have to walk to get to, and it takes like 45 minutes. So
Well, you're here.
I got here as soon as I could.
You're here. Yeah, I just went over what you and I discussed. I was thinking that this is a really good kind of overall description so people can understand what might make something a higher flammability risk, or not a risk, but what would make a tree considered to be higher flammability or lower flammability. And just briefly talked about the different types of, what comprises or combines to make a flammability rating. But there is no real, end all be all list for any one area for their flammability ratings. Actually, you sent me a really good paper on like, how do you make a plant flammability list? There's a lot that goes into it. And I should probably send that out to everybody. I don't know if everyone will read it, but I can at least send it. I can lead y'all to water.
I think it's like, it all sometimes feels like, well, maybe we don't need this in Athens, like we haven't had a major fire come through. And I think Gatlinburg was feeling the same way, before the crazy fires came through there, and yeah, just havoc. I think we're seeing a lot more of these fairly devastating fires, so this is sort of like an effort to get ahead of it a little bit, make people aware, information. It's what people do with that information.
Do you think we could create an aversion to some species or kind of wrongfully make people too worried? I think that's probably a pretty common thought. It's like, well, we don't want to overstate or scare people about some species, right? That's kind of what one thing you were
No, Mm-hmm.
saying.
I guess what my main thing comes down to is what's the best means to educating people? Is it putting a flammability rating on a tree species list, or is it actually pushing knowledge and information campaign that helps people prep their house and then their things for those environmental efforts that will, if there was a fire, that would actually prevent or help prevent their buildings and structures from being at risk or as at risk. And I don't know, and I'm not arguing with that, but I don't know that the tree species list serves that purpose. I think it's a great exercise to come up with a flammability rating for all the plants on that, but I don't know if it serves the purpose of allowing Athenians the opportunity to say, hey, my dwelling or my neighborhood might be at risk, and these are the reasons why, and this is what I can do to fix that. I don't know that the tree species list would accomplish that goal. I'm all for it. Yeah, I've literally, I come from Florida. I spent 12 years working in fire and wildfire in Florida and across the Southeast. So like, I'm not speaking from I'm just saying, like, I don't know that the tree species list accomplishes that to the fullest extent of what you would like to accomplish. And there's so many good, your documents are great. All the fire information in North Carolina State, they have a lot of great landscaping for that. I don't know that the tree species, I'm not saying you don't put high warning ones on there, but I think there might be better ways of educating than putting on the tree species.
One way to get it might be to ask the question, communities that have firewise plans in place or whatever you call it, how do they use them most? Do they use them when they're thinking about planting trees on their property, or do they use them to think about how they're dealing with existing vegetation?
I think it's both. I think you're seeing the push for planned communities to plan their landscaping and their build outs in a way that doesn't create the issues. And then there's also the notion of going into a community and doing ratings and saying, okay, this neighborhood scores high based on landscaping, based on ingress and egress, based on all of these different things that go into that. What are your water sources? Is there more than one way in and out of this subdivision? Things like that. So I think it's both. I think there is a decided push, rightly so, especially based on some of the stuff we've seen in California and other places. Not that that's the only place that can happen, but it's been the big ticket. And so how can we be smarter about the way we plan and the way we, so I think it's both.
I actually was thinking that this year seemed kind of interesting that we were bringing this up because it's been so dry this year. And if we continue to head into a fall, which is typically our dry time of the year, to have this dryness, we're going to start seeing a lot more wildfires. But to your point, I think a species list on its own doesn't say a lot. It would need or could be supported better with some educational programming to what do you even do with this? What's this all about? I guess my question is, how many people use the species list that we have? Who uses it? How many people are using it? Are homeowners using it? Or I guess we don't know.
Sometimes.
I use them a lot through the different municipalities we work with to get for our sets to be permitted, all of our like big landscape sets to get permitted.
So
So
then
I would
think
prefer
about like what target audience you would have for doing programming. Like
Yeah,
that would, I think, make a lot of sense. But I think if it was gonna be created, like kind of tying it to something, a webinar or a workshop, but we're obviously not gonna reach everybody.
But I think this year is a great year, like you said, like, because, you know, we keep going back to the Gatlinburg fires, so those were, what, 2016? That was the last time we had a huge shift from El Nino to La Nina, which is what we're seeing now. And based on weather predictions and looking at the fire weather predictions, like in the state meetings that have been held with fire practitioners for the past couple months, that's the one thing that they're stressing is that we are potentially coming, the last time we saw this hard shift, if it holds true, was the same year we had all the fires in North Georgia, in the mountains and things like that, and as well as those Gatlinburg fires. So it's a great time to open up the conversation. I just want it to be more robust. Like
There is a good, better, and best.
no, I know, but I think you would be putting time into something that won't be used the way you want it to be used by just putting flood and building index on the tree species.
I would propose trying to think about the tree code. I would propose that a bulletin be made, the one pager.
Just fire.
Dare I say not? I say it's where a circular that
I'd rather have
references,
sort of.
that references Holly's and other people's work, and that's traditionally what's been done. And that's something that you can hand to a citizen that calls you. The brand new arborist can read off whatever a person in planning department can read a script, and it's got references. And then I would say you would build up to an educational effort that culminates. Hold on, I'm not finished yet. With the tree management plan addressing distance to structures. And because right now, what we have is we have a distance to structures that trees can be. And so we're starting something where I think everybody's in agreement. We want to get ahead of the game here. We've got all these other departments. Fire being the big one, right?
Well, and fire needs to be involved in
Well,
this education.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If we start with a bulletin, that we can have something, and then we make it a point to keep revisiting it, then we can adapt our species list when and if we reach that point, and we can adapt our code right now, which has, the 15 feet, which I'm assuming, and 10 feet for other trees, which I'm assuming is probably not fire-wise.
No, it's okay. It depends on the species and how close. It's not us.
But
No.
I'm building towards like, we have a hard time as a council and suggesting even one change to the code. And that's just, that's obvious to me after 2 years here, and that's fine. We're not here to do that every time, but it takes every member being here, and it takes a concerted effort, and we want something. So let's start something and then revisit this and get something meaty that you can submit to the mayor commission. What do you think about that time?
I think that's good. I'll also put out there, the reason why I'm bringing this or kind of coming into it is I also know that like the whole notion of becoming Firewise, accredited was brought up several years ago in Fort Athens, and it didn't get off the table very far. I'm not saying right or wrong. I'm just saying, so this isn't something that this is something that's had some steam in the past or had at least some meetings. I had meetings, okay, somewhere. And I do think that the fire department, I feel like they are a good partner in this. And you don't owe their structure. So that, well, we don't have it's them and then also forestry. But our local guys, they do so much education through their trailer, their little, it's so easy for her to take, I can't come up with her name right now, but for her, Emily, right? She would probably be over the moon to help with education regarding this. She loves that kind of stuff. And I think
She's with fire department?
she's the PR.
she's their,
Communication
specialist. So pulling in their them into the conversation and following suit with what you're saying. I feel like I would say that that's a great way to kind of like.
Sounds good.
The new guy that's taking over for Alfonso,
Rick.
yeah, he actually emailed me asking me about how we can become Firewise.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a reoccurring thing. It kind of pops up. I have like old data, but old flyers from it. Like I want to say the last time that I'm aware that it popped up was like 08.
Good job, Ricky. You did.
Yeah.
Also, Sandy Creek has been doing shrub burning. And I mean, some of that is to, I mean, that's not really their objectives, but it has a side effect of reducing wildfire severity. And so it's something that they could be a collaborative partner as well.
Yeah. I mean, the sustainability department, like, I'm responsible for the burning in the county for all our prescribed burns and like getting that program up and going back again, but with that, the nature center, the managed forest, and then branching out to Rock and Shoals, Tallahassee, places where we can safely burn in an ecological way that like actually helps benefit those, like Beach Haven can't, like, there's just no way from an airship point of view, but like that's in our strategic plans and goals. And so like, so there's also, I say that because some of y'all know. So it's not me poo-pooing, it's me like, hey, let's make this like an actual like something that works for us. Cause I don't want to get buried in a tree list that I know developers and that use a lot, but I don't know that people in are in our neighborhoods that are shopping for trees or looking at their property from that point of view. I don't know how much they're pulling that tree species list. And I don't mean anything against it. I just don't know. I feel like it's a valuable effort. Let's just really make more value.
I think just be like, I think what you're trying to say is just like being very intentional about it and bringing in multiple partners, providing some educational support as opposed to just like tossing the list out there, you know, because not everybody's going to click on the link to take them somewhere. But if we make educational programming, not everybody's going to show up to the webinar and the workshop, but we can still reach a good group of people with contingent. Maybe it's tied to a prescribed fire event.
And there's also the idea of like, so Firewise doesn't have to be a whole city. And
I think it can
a
only be
lot
up
of
to
it's-
2,500 households.
Right, so a lot of it's in the community of need.
So,
So I think as you go further on this, then what you might actually do is target some of our most at-risk communities when it comes to fire in areas that would be at risk. And Forest Heights, that would be one. Step off of Tallahassee Road, that would be one. Some of this stuff in East Athens, you know, different places where you could actually pull homeowners association and communities together and say, hey, did you know? And that's where like the fire department and having that education, because then they're gonna come because they're interested in it. Like, oh, you mean my house could burn? What do you mean? And then they tell their neighbor that maybe doesn't live in the neighborhood. And so I think that's a way to kind of have those ripple out effects where you actually start to make some, like, where people start to kind of pay heads up. Because I'm telling you, when Matthew Motors goes up, guys, like everybody's gonna be wondering. We have fires in Athens, and it's gonna be right off Atlanta Highway and the at-home store and everything else. And it'll be fancy and it'll be fun. I'm just saying that because it's all thick pines on a hillside, pine bark beetle, and like we have homeless issues on that property. And like sooner or later, it's gonna happen and it will be a show. But places like that exist in the community. And we don't think they do until you stop and start looking around on those edges.
I think like you said, Melissa, I mean, making a video stands the test of time, you know, unless we get new data, but you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be a webinar that people like sign up for and show up to. It could be a YouTube video that people can get anytime they want, you know, 2 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, because people are interested in that on Saturday nights. You know, so I think we could pretty easily put out the educational aspect to it. But it will require some energy from us.
When did Ricky contact you? Was that like recently or?
Yeah, I asked him about ISO ratings because I was wondering if it was even feasible for us to get it down if we were to be like Firewise communities but apparently ours is the highest it can go. So our ISO rating won't ever drop at all. But then he emailed me like a week later after he had said it all, and I guess he did like it was kind of he was cogitating on it, and he emailed me back and was like, "Hey, so how can we become a Firewise community? Let's talk about this." So he's interested. Does anybody else have anything they want to talk about?
I do.
Seer Gary, I knew you had something.
Yeah, bigger picture, I'd like to get everybody on board with saving trees as much as planting trees. I think I mentioned this a few meetings back, but as you may know, kudzu and wisteria, et cetera, are out there killing wonderful mature trees, and it's pretty simple to get those vines off of the trees and save them. Specifically, there's a sort of a new-ish invasive species, what is Oriental bittersweet, that we don't find in this community very much, but there's a huge infestation of it behind the Oglethorpe Elementary School. Just it covers just acres and acres, and the vines are already to the top of the trees. We can still save them. It's sort of as a first step to saving the trees behind Oglethorpe Elementary. I've nominated it as a Rivers Alive invasive removal site for October. I don't know if that's going to go through or not, but it has the potential to be a site for MLK Day or neighborhood efforts. But it's happening real fast. These vines are always to the top of really big trees, and so it's not just this site, but those seeds are real tasty for the birds. They spread all over the community. So that particular species is something that we need to be aware of and do something about it at Oglethorpe. And I know y'all have done a lot of planting activities on school property. So if we can kind of expand the planting idea to saving trees on school property, that would be great. And I've been in contact with the principal at Oglethorpe, and he seems to be on board with the Rivers Alive removal. We're just really concentrating on the calorie repair. There's a huge infestation of calorie repair there. But get the calorie repair this month and work on the Oriental bittersweet later. So if I could go to the school principal and say, well, the community tree council is kind of on board with this, that would be maybe motivating. And Stephanie and I have been talking a little bit about this spot, and you've been there.
Were you gonna say
I'm
that?
just wondering, like, if you're in contact with the principal, and if they have like a 4-H club or something like that, that maybe that could be part of like the students meeting.
Yeah.
Instead of, because what if it doesn't get on the list for MLK? What if it doesn't get Rivers Alive, whatever? But if they have school environmental club of some sort, maybe, if we go in there and people want to talk about it, let them know how important it is to save the trees and how invasive it is, that's something they could probably do twice a year or something, just go out there and just pull that down.
Yeah, it'd be a great educational and restoration process.
As an elementary school, I don't know if they would have like an ecology club, but I know a lot of the middle schools and high schools have very similar things. I've spoken at a few of them.
Well, there is an outdoor classroom there. So
Really?
it's a little amphitheater of benches overlooking a pond.
It's in the woods, you can't see it. It's in the woods, you can't see it. So the other thing that offers, instead of going, like, it's the school, so it's the school district property and the principal, there's getting the permissions and making sure they understand what's gonna happen. There was a lot of that project, but from a tree council point of view and from a larger scale, like, it might be a good idea. So like the school board the Clark County School Board, like they have a relatively new sustainability committee with several groups and committees on it. And I know one of them is greening is one of their things, and they're looking at school properties and how to make them more, you know, like that's one of their pushes is on school properties. And so this might be something that like going to their sustainability committee and saying, hey, from an invasive species and from a quote unquote, you know, that it fits into that, maybe that no. And then it could be cross. It's not just Oglethorpe Elementary, because this is like the work that'll be required up here is not just pulling. I mean, it's cutting, painting. It's a lot. It's heavy duty fines and infestations. And so like elementary kids could be involved for sure, but I think it would definitely be something more on the level of like of middle school and high school. And that's just another avenue if y'all are interested that you might look. And I know at least I know two people who are on the committee. One is on the I don't know what the title is, but that portion of it. And then I know Dr. Yeager's was the person who's was tasked with kicking on the whole sustainability council kind of thing. And so you might be able to reach out to her and kind of see if it's something that they would be interested in. And I also know that there is some funding available for habitat types of things, pollinator/habitat through Soil and Water Conservation District that could potentially be used for projects like this. And it seems relatively easy to get. I'm not saying, I mean, so like, I'm just throwing those as ideas. If y'all are interested, like, it would be something you could possibly, there's funding through 27.
That's Georgia Soil and Water
Yeah.
Conservation. There's like an office right down here, I think.
Yeah. I have the flyer for it loosely tells how to but really just it's one person.
Okay.
Yeah. I think they make it stick enough and when it applies for it, even if it's you apply for it.
I mean, I think Gary brings up a really good point because well, so I heard a really discouraging statistic. They kind of accounted for all the carbon that goes into a balled and burlapped 2-inch tree. And if you put a tree in the ground at a 2-inch caliper, you know, what do you think? How long do you think that tree has to grow before it has repaid its carbon debt? Like 30+ years. Okay, like that's ridiculous. That is a lot of time for it to ever repay itself. And most of those trees aren't going to make it to that. You know, so then they're just, you know, net negative for us. No, in those instances, trees are not the answer, but saving a tree, a mature tree, is far more carbon positive than us planting a tree.
And it can take 30 minutes per tree.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be wildly easier. So I really like the idea of us trying to push that and be more on top of you know, habitat saving. Even though, you know, English ivy is somewhat habitat for some animals, I guess, but yeah, I think it's a great idea.
I can take you to Sandy Creek Park and I can show you a lot of dead trees that are directly attributable to wisteria, and a lot more are going to come down soon.
Yeah. I've got quite a few properties that are backing up to ACC properties with gigantic pines that are being strangled by wisteria, and it's tough to get different departments to want to pay for those trees before there's an issue and it falls on a house. So I deal with it a lot, actually. A lot of trees are getting killed by wisteria, and a lot of ACC trees specifically.
Yeah.
I do have an update on the invasive species ordinance. If y'all are interested.
That's juicy.
I'll try to update. So it is with inspections. We're under, you know, it's like they're on the building inspection side of our buildings, so planning building inspections. And they tasked one code officer with, with, administering it. And so they have completed their first one. And, it was bamboo, and they went out. They said, you know, this is really like, it's kind of like I say to people on a tree, you know, it's like, do you know your neighbor? Friends with them, it's a good chance to talk to them, you know, get out. And so they went out there and they tried that wasn't working. So then they went out again, they brought the cameras and they had them dig because they had to like look beneath the soil, you know, at the bamboos, like a rhizome, right? And they had to like establish that the rhizome was like actually here and that it had been removed and so they established their baseline and they wrote a little report, but they're still figuring it out. And but the first one has been completed.
Well, that was something I had someone call me last week about wisteria, and she wanted to know what her options were for that ordinance, the changes to the ordinance.
It's
And when I explained what her options were, she was not happy with that, because then it made her the bad guy with her neighbor.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think so that is the, and I'm like, well, it's complaint driven because we can't go out and, you know, it has to be that way. So there have been several people calling, kind of inquiring.
they're gonna revisit the site.
Yeah, because they have to establish that they've been temp. You have to prove that you are not an invasive species plant owner by the means of that you've tried to get it, you've tried to keep it from coming onto your property, because it's like a cat. You let the cat stay on your porch and you provide food, congratulations, you now are the owner of that street cat. You gotta think of it like that. You let that plant come in and you allow it to stay there, congratulations, you are now an invasive species plant owner, which is actually what.
Kind of tangential to that or parallel. I went to Lowe's to the store manager over here on the east side, who apparently knows UWIC. Of course, everyone in Athens knows you.
I'm not so sure about that.
But
Jason?
yeah.
Yes.
And I asked him, I was like, hey, you know, is there any way you think we could like get y'all not to sell wisteria? And he was like, actually, there is a chance of that. You know, he had heard about the new thing that went through. It's like, if you could send me information about the new ordinance, really, it's not his decision. It's a regional manager. So for the Southeast, but that regional manager is from Athens, Georgia. So I think they would be maybe a little more receptive.
Could you get them out so early? I'm listening.
Yes.
I mean, this is a good
This is
opening
part of the
salvo.
education that the commissioners and the LRC wanted us to look at doing when the conversation was about quote unquote outlawing these species. And where it has been productive, like the Everglades SISMA and some other Florida systems have been very productive in going to their stores on the regional level and saying, these are on our like top bad list. Will you commit to not selling them? And surprisingly, some of the box stores, and especially when it is on a regional basis, but they've been there's been success. Now, what then has to happen is because people change, it requires folks like, you know, an invasive, you know, people that hold those stores accountable so that when you know, that it's kind of like developing out, like, this is our commitment. And then they sign off on it. But then there's when you walk in a store and you see that, you say, hey, I know for a fact that, you know, Lowe's and that you guys on this level, you know, you agreed to sell this, like, and then you make it, you know, and then because some, you know, people change and they forget. And then, oh, hey, I got a great price on this really pretty purple flower. And so, like, it's worked in tandem. And this is where, like, teaming up with, like, the Native Plants Society chapter here in Athens, we want working with that state list that's being evaluated and changed, and then kind of coming up with is another great place for the tree council to kind of step in and be like, hey, like, these are, we would love to, and like, there's several departments that will work with to go to it, and to say, hey, like, we would like you to commit to selling these.
Phil, do you know anybody with the native plant societies here
I do not.
or? Okay,
Yeah, Gary does, there's several of us there.
okay, well,
The
You know,
president
like
is
that.
Jerry Helms.
really?
Yes.
ACC, okay, I know her from college.
She's currently person.
Well, how about that?
East Piedmont.
What's the name?
It's the East, I think it's the East Piedmont Athens chapter of the Georgia Native Plant Society, or it's the Athens East Piedmont. I can't ever.
What's her?
Her name is Sherry Hines. She's the chapter president.
I was just thinking about, how a colleague of mine whole career has been at a local woody plant nursery, say any names, that like all they grow are invasive plants.
Yeah.
They sell all over the southeast, and how hopefully it could, she's like, she is avidly like not interested in what she's growing, but she has no choice over like what's grown. There's such a demand for it. They sell so much of it. And yeah, it's just like, it would be nice for that to trickle down to. I mean, granted, it could put places like that out of business, they employ like 40 people.
A big box store is easier to say like, okay, yeah, we don't need to sell this, cause they'll be fine without selling wisteria or Aleagnes.
Well,
I mean, I like the idea of the change, the trickle down to like, okay, maybe I'll give her something else.
Yeah,
It's find the alternative.
should point out that the big box stores on the other side of the Savannah River in South Carolina are forbidden to sell wisteria and calorie repair.
really,
Yeah, well, as of October of this year, it's when the ordinance goes into effect.
that's a state
That's a
mandated.
Yeah, stately, it started with
South
calorie
Carolina,
repair,
aggressive.
and they added
FSU.
17 other invasive species to the list, and all of those are forbidden to be sold. It's a pending thing.
We should be able to use that information to shame Georgia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is.
No, I had examples.
How's it going?
Mississippi around that.
It's been worse.
Well, yeah, as of right now, I think there's 5 states that have declared calorie pairs illegal to be sold in the nursery trade.
Wow. Any word on the Bradford pear bounty?
We have, it's on the list of things that are nice to do. Anytime you have breathing space and I have breathing space, like, let's start the conversation.
Well, Seth Hawkins with the Georgia Forestry Commission has money to do it.
Okay. It's
Do the
hard.
tree giveaway.
It's hard, I mean, I think we can do it on a county level. It just, it's been done. It just, the problem is we can't spend county dollars to buy the plants that we then give to people because of the gratuity laws kind of. But if there's funding that we could go after for different things, then like, let's go after it and let's get all of our ducks in a row and plan it out and start small. And then, and go, yeah, but like, I'm open, like, it's one of the things it was on our list of educational and different activities as part of that ordinance change that the sustainability department is tasked with. It just,
And that's how South Carolina started their programs with the.
Yeah, Clemson did, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
show a picture is the easiest way of that Bradford pear. We heard that the tree has been removed or cut down. And you get a seedling or a plant in return for it. So it's that type of bounty. They're just kind of the easiest one to start with. Because you can't require them to bring the tree in, right? So it's more like a picture of it, and like we probably have to have a geo-referenced picture. And then if we start small enough, if we really feel like there's chances that someone will abuse the system, we could, someone go buy and check the address for the tree. We could do it multiple different ways, but.
Are we gonna ask them to paint the stuff with herbicide also? It'll resprout.
We haven't discussed it.
Yeah.
And as
Haven't really worked on it.
we haven't worked on it, that's why I say like when we get a little bit breathe, like I say, let's go for it. It's just,
Well, I'll talk more with Seth in November. I've got the Georgia Tree Council conference in Jekyll Island, so I'm sure I'll have his ear a few times there. And that would probably be about the right time to do it, start getting stuff ready in the winter so that in the spring be easily visible for people to find a Bradford pear. I do worry though, because like I've got a sand pear in my backyard. And if you just go out looking for white blooms at that time of year, then you may cut down other things that aren't Bradford pears.
To come up with some like, some great.
Some good info
Right.
for
Like,
people.
This is not like, I'm going out looking for, I prepare, I won't cut it down, I won't get a fruit tree out of it. Like, that's not the kind of mountain we're going after. Like, this is like in your yard, on your property, and you ID'd it and you cut it. This is not like, well, I saw this white blooming tree and y'all said I could get a hungry sycamore.
Who knew?
That
So
was,
quick.
is it a barn? No.
Well, I have a true story to speak to how bad some people can be at plant identification. I was up at Skinny Dip Falls on the Blue Ridge Parkway, and it's in the early spring. My wife found some ramps. We're like, cool. Like, okay, so we took a very respectable harvest, not many at all. And a buddy of mine, we had a little bag, and he had it around his neck, and he was holding one of them. And two ladies come walking past. She's like, "Oh, cool! What do you have there?" And he's ramps. Oh, that doesn't look like the ramps we got. We said, "Well, what do the ramps look like that you got?" Like, so they pulled out of their backpack gallon bags, like Ziploc bags, of false hellebore that they had been planting. So you're like, no, that's not ramps. You know, that could poison you. And I kid you not, the next words out of her mouth were, "I think we're gonna have to remake that YouTube video."
Whoa.
Oh,
gosh, yeah.
So at that point, I was like, okay. Yeah. So some people can get.
Foraging in the national.
It's not even a national forest if you're on the Blue Ridge Parkway.
Is that not a national forest?
Isn't that Department of Interior?
Go pick for your own.
It might be. It might be.
It's a linear.
Should have said that while we were recording.
A little in holding a private property act.
National forest. If I walk down a trip in national park and I pick huckleberries,
You can't forage anything in national parks.
I've heard that you can take like mushrooms as long as it doesn't like fill a 5-gallon bucket,
there's
is
a
what I was
personal
told.
consumption level for some.
That's like the rules, if you're not supposed to harvest anything in national parks. Like the Cherokee had to go through a whole process to get permission to harvest anything.
Really?
I think, but that's what I mean, like, I think there is, maybe not national parks, although as a national park employee, I ate a whole lot of huckleberries off a glacier, just saying. But I think that there, on Forest Service land, I think in certain cases, in most places, there's a certain personal consumption.
That's correct. For Forest Service lands. And Park Service, yeah, you're not
You're not
supposed
supposed
to,
to pick flowers.
right? But yeah, as a Park Service employee too, things happen.
But I'm pretty sure it's personal consumption, like you can't harvest for sale
Yeah.
or for large quantities, which there's like, for what you would generally eat. Things may have changed.
I've seen people out there on the park though.
Yeah, ginseng is
I
no,
think you'd have to have a permit.
you'd have to, well, I don't know that you
Probably could.
get it from.
So we should definitely make sure people understand what Bradford pear is before we start doing that. Be very explicit. But yeah, that was something that I've been worried about. I was like, man, people could get a little hacked.
That's why I say we need to, like, maybe this spring might be a little, to think we can pull it all together and be ready to go.
Yeah.
So we could work on it, education, that kind of stuff, and be ready to go the following spring, everything in line, trees ordered, things like that. Like, I'm trying to be realistic with what I know my time frame is, and just like, it's not October, but it feels like it already is.
I try to think in
Probably
in time spans, like years in the future. But with the new near map thing that we've got, we could always schedule flights in the spring specifically to try to find wisteria and Bradford pear patches. Because not too hard to use the RGB values to look for very specific colors. So like wisteria blooms, of course, the flight would have to happen while it's blooming, if it's a good bloom that year. Like if it was this spring and we caught the wisteria, we could have seen a bunch.
What are we gonna do if we spend the money to apply for this spring? I'm.
Well, if we
Like,
if we
everything that's taken is-
did it in conjunction with a flight we were gonna do anyways,
Yeah,
but try
yeah.
and line it up.
What would be looking for public-private land?
Yeah, just seeing how much of it we've got, where are the biggest patches maybe, what would be the low hanging fruit for us to try to attack. But that's something I'm pondering on. I've been talking with a few people that do specifically aerial imagery data sets, but I haven't got much yet, so there's potential. Does anybody have a motion to,
I'll move. So anyway.
Ham moves to adjourn?
Big development to that.
Phil, you gotta be perfect. You gotta be perfect today. You've had a.
Okay, I second.
Second, there we go. So Phil, seconds.
Finally.
All yays, we have to say yay on this one though, actually. We can't do nays on that. So yays.
Yeah.
I thought it was all staying.
Holly wants to stay,
No,
so no nays. And it is adjourned. At exactly, well, 5:29.
I just referred to a plant list and they still have Brad's hair on it. I was like, I'm just kidding.
You still have what on?
That Brad's hair.
Really?
My client was like, ooh, I was like, no. No. It's just they
Really
get from.
fast.
I know that is not a part of your purpose.
Been out to DC, every road was one.
They're in Chicago.
But that was in the days when they were young,
Lit now.
Right.
Then it's pretty ragged, but
so good when they're old.
there's a few. Little feelings that give me day.
I got it. Really?
Yeah.
Some old like they don't really clear.
I think what has the feel that they are, you know, layoffs or whatever, and it's just. In the end, yards are- I don't know how you, I mean, you.
So next time.